Some women don't grow up not because they can't, but because they won't. Or rather, because they're afraid. Afraid of what growing truly means. Afraid that by leaving behind the sweetness of youth, they'll lose what once made them visible, desirable, unique. They remain psychologically anchored in a state of charming lightness, as if time had no power over them. They're spontaneous, passionate, radiant, but underneath it all, deeply fragile. They live as though life were an endless rehearsal for a performance that never premieres, jumping from one passion to the next, without ever diving into anything fully. Their eyes shine, but if you look closer, there's an emptiness they can't explain. This pattern has a name, Pure Eternus, or in its feminine form, Pure Eterna, the eternal girl. Carl Jung identified this archetype as one of the most powerful forces the unconscious can exert on a life. But it was Marie-Louise von Franz who described it with brutal clarity for her. This woman floats in a timeless bubble where psychological aging is denied. What appears as charm is in truth resistance. Resistance to maturity, to commitment, to anchoring oneself in reality. From the outside, she seems free, fascinating, unpredictable, but inside she is gripped by a silent fear, the fear of holding, because growing up means holding. Holding decisions, holding relationships, holding an identity beyond the desire to be adored. The eternal girl doesn't want to let go of her options. She'd rather cling to the fantasy of perfect love than confront the work real intimacy requires. She wants freedom, but not autonomy. She seeks passion, but dreads the mundane. And here's the unsettling part. She often doesn't even realize she's trapped. She doesn't understand why she feels so empty, why she keeps repeating the same mistakes, why everything that begins with fire ends in ashes. This isn't coincidence. It's an archetype quietly ruling her life from the shadows. The eternal girl is not a phase. She's not just a personality trait. She is a deep archetype, an unconscious way of existing in the world. She lives in constant idealization of love, of life, of herself. She believes her charm is enough to hold everything together, but doesn't see that this very charm is what keeps her from growing. She dreams of perfect love, but cannot bear human imperfection. She wants to be chosen, but doesn't know how to choose herself. She speaks of freedom, but runs from her own decisions. This pattern doesn't arise from nowhere. It is a psychic response to a culture that worships youth and devalues maturity. A culture that tells women their worth lies in being desired, not in being whole. And it's also a wound. Many of these women carry frozen pain from childhood, emotional injuries never fully healed to survive. They crafted an enchanting identity, but over time, that mask becomes a cage. Emma Jung said it clearly: a woman who does not integrate her inner masculine, what Jung called the animus, the rational structuring function of the psyche, remains divided, and this division manifests in unstable relationships, indecision, and dreams that never come true. The eternal girl doesn't want structure because she senses that to become grounded means to become less adored. But the price of that avoidance is steep, chronic instability. Behind all the sweetness, the playfulness, the seduction, there's a silent ache, a void she tries to fill with constant motion, new plans, new loves, new experiences, but nothing satisfies because what she's missing isn't out there. What she's missing is depth. She has yet to confront her shadow, to face the inner transition into psychological adulthood. And here emerges a deeper question. If the maiden dominates the feminine psyche, where is the rest of womanhood? Where is the root, the voice, the sovereignty? Because within every woman, beyond the girl, lies a sleeping queen. And to awaken her, you must first understand what's keeping her dormant. Within every feminine psyche, there's a silent battle, the maiden and the queen. The maiden represents possibility, innocence, the fascination with what's new. The queen embodies grounding, purpose, the ability to sustain. When the maiden dominates, the woman lives in a state of constant almost. She almost loves, almost commits, almost creates, but almost doesn't nourish. It drains. It keeps her circling, never arriving. Marie-Louise von France stated it without hesitation. The maiden who refuses to die symbolically cannot be reborn as a whole woman. This isn't about physical death. It's about the death of the ego's childish fantasy. That part that still longs to be saved, admired, adored, without having to carry responsibility. This symbolic death is painful, but it is also the gateway to what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming one's true self. The queen is not mild or passive. She does not live to be liked. She reigns within. She is rooted, direct, whole. She doesn't wait to be chosen. She chooses. She doesn't seek approval. She recognizes her own worth. She doesn't speak endlessly about what she'll do someday. She does it, and in that steadiness she transforms her world. The difference between the maiden and the queen isn't age, it's consciousness. You can be 20 and live like a queen. You can be 40 and still be ruled by the eternal girl. What changes a woman is not time. It's the moment she stops running, the moment she chooses to build instead of drift, the moment she exchanges fantasy for presence. But to rise as queen, something must be surrendered. The illusion of being effortlessly adored, the fixation with always being light, ethereal, untouchable. You must let go of the identity that was crafted to survive so that you can finally live. Because only when the fantasy dissolves can the throne appear. It is not about killing the maiden, but about letting her step aside so the woman can rise, not as a dream, but as a force, not as a reflection, but as a center. The eternal girl doesn't destroy with violence. She sabotages quietly, not out of malice, but out of fear. She believes she's still figuring things out, needing space, looking for alignment, but that search becomes a maze in love. She wants intensity without weight. She idealizes her partner until he shows his humanity, then she retreats. Says it's not like before, that something changed, that the spark is gone, but the spark was never real. It was projection. She didn't fall in love with him, but with the part of herself she hasn't yet discovered: stability, emotional depth, inner structure. Marie-Louise von France was precise. This archetype seeks a savior, someone to organize the inner chaos, to give meaning to her existence. But when that man appears, she demands so much from him that no one can hold the role. Disappointed, she retreats, idealizes again, and the cycle repeats. In her career, the same pattern emerges. She wants meaning, passion, purpose. But she fears routine, consistency, repetition. She starts with fire, with vision, then stops at the first sign of boredom. Says she's still searching, that she needs something more aligned, but often she's simply running from the discipline every real path requires. The problem isn't lack of talent, it's the refusal to root. Emma Jung warned of women with an immature animus, the inner masculine structure that shapes thoughts and action instead of maturity. It manifests as inflated speech, beautiful ideas, poetic vision, and endless self-talk without form, without commitment, without result. It's seduction without depth. This shows up in her choices, or more accurately, in her fear of choosing, because to choose is to close doors, and she dreads finality. It means letting go of parts of herself, accepting consequences, ending fantasies, so she lives in maybe this, maybe that, maybe she'll stay, maybe she'll return, maybe she'll change, but maybe builds nothing. It just delays the pain of becoming real. There comes a moment when the old identity no longer fits. The charm that once opened doors now feels like a mask too tight. The constant search, the restless longing, the ache disguised as lightness, it all begins to collapse under its own weight, and something deeper stirs. Not another fantasy, not another rescue, but a truth long buried. This can't go on. You feel it in your silence, in the patterns you swore you'd break, but keep repeating. In the gap between who you appear to be and who you might become. This is the turning point, the moment where the eternal girl must surrender her crown of illusions and allow the queen within to rise. She doesn't rise with applause or permission. She rises in solitude, in the quiet decision to stop running, in the audacity to face the truth. No one is coming to save her. No perfect timing will arrive. The freedom she longs for won't come from endless options, but from anchoring deeply into one. And when she makes that choice, everything shifts. She stops asking to be understood and starts understanding herself. She stops rehearsing life and begins to live it, not as a girl waiting to be seen, but as a woman who sees not as a muse for someone else's story, but as the author of her own. This is not the death of magic, it is a transmutation. The charm becomes clarity, the softness becomes strength, and the emptiness is finally filled, not with fantasy but with presence. So if something in you is ready, truly ready, then say it. Say it not to the world but to yourself. I'm done waiting, I'm done floating, I choose to grow. And in that moment the story changes. The girl vanishes into the midst of what was, and the woman, rooted, luminous, whole, takes her first true step into the life she was always meant to create.